what lessons you have learned while you start your business and scaling up the same business to the next level? Can you please share us?
See, I think companies or the individuals who start up with the idea, you start a business thinking it's one of the most brilliant ideas that you have. Soon you realize, how do you take it to the market? How do you make your presence felt? So that's the first challenge that you have. So the day you break that and go into the next phase, you have to start making money on it. So the idea is one thing, making money over that idea is the next challenge that you would face. So you got to be able to validate that and ensure that you are taking the business where you are able to make money. Now the next phase that you have to go through is make it profitable. You make money, but are you really making profit enough to run and take this business up, right? So that's the challenge that you would have. And the next phase from there is actually to scaling the business, where you can actually show some growth, significant growth from X to Y, which is a much larger challenge that you would face. So depending on where you are, you would face different kind of challenges. So one thing is very essential is when somebody is investing in you, they are not actually investing in the idea first. First and foremost, they are investing in the person. So you have to make sure who you are and what drives you and why you think that you would make a big difference. So you need to be able to bring in and concentrate on your core efforts, right? And ensure that you emphasize what you do and outsource the things that you don't necessarily have to concentrate on. For example, automating your daily tasks, maybe accounting. You know, there's a lot of stuff that you have to deal with for running a business. So you have to make sure that you're not stuck in day-to-day activities that don't necessarily scale up your business. So that's the first segment that you need to look into. The next aspect is every phase will require for you to focus on your sales and marketing efforts, equally technology, because these days technology also is a key part for you to scale your business anywhere, whether it is within India or outside India. So you need to have founding team members who are able to do both sales and marketing as well as technology. I think you need to make sure that you have the enterprise experience to scale up that business.
Cyber security is not just for startups, right? So we do a lot of people think that it's not required for a startup. It's only for large companies like Google, Facebook, who holds a lot of data. I just have a small set of data. Why do I need to invest so much in a security, systems or platforms, right? That's the notion. Most of the startup companies when they start with. One thing I would like to quote is even large companies. If you go to the COVID times, everybody, even established companies, faced issues because they had to run business and they had to send systems to various residential houses of all the employees to run the business. Nobody came to office, right? So a lot of companies faced a different challenge, though they were having fully equipped security systems in their offices. But when then the systems to house, how do you monitor them? What happened to your client data? What if I take a picture and send it to or upload it to a dark web, right? Large companies, faced numerous issues. They implemented new tech solutions, screen capturing, what is the employee doing on the screen while he is logged in. SOC systems, to monitor what is the, ingress egress points, which IP is logging in from. Is he sitting in Goa and working? Who knows, right? So, I would say the companies have invested by far and different security solutions came into picture post-COVID. But when it comes to startups, right, when similar to the COVID times, Startups don't have, they'll not start with a registered office in a big office setup. They'll start from an apartment or a house. And they might sometimes start up with their personal laptops, not designated, company assets. See, my point here is, security comes from the start of, whatever business line you are into, because end of the day, it's gaining the trust of the customer, right? As long as you maintain that, whichever security device you have doesn't matter. You should not be exposed. To have, from the initial stages itself, you have a proper plan. There are so many solutions in the market now, which doesn't require so much of capital. Simple systems, simple structure to start with. If you start growing, and then as Sir was mentioning, from a PE perspective or a venture capital perspective, these days, they have vendors who go and check on these startups, whether they have cybersecurity procedures or not, before investing. What if they don't have, and then it goes to some fraud or, some data hack happens or a breach happens? It's a legal issue. And the PE firm might lose all the funds they would have kept there. So my point here is, starting from securing the endpoints to having a secure networks, data at rest, data in motion, encrypting them, so identifying sensitive data, not giving access to everybody in the organization, having strong access data controls. There are so many things we can talk about, but the fundamental thing is make sure the data is secured by implementing proper standard cybersecurity procedures. Not only if you have presence in India, if tomorrow if your business is growing outside geographies, make sure your data privacy, GDPR, CCPA, whichever country you are going to. Maybe Sir FinSem will be more linked to that. The kind of regulatory concerns you might have, handling customer KYC, PII data, anything which gets leaked. There's so much of legal implications. You have to do breach notifications in the US. Let's say if a customer data is leaked in dark web, the company has to send notices to the individuals that your data is breached, because if he doesn't do it, if he files a complaint, it will be huge fines for the company. So overall, my only suggestion to all the companies here, or you want to set up or you're already midway running in a company, make sure you do an assessment, figure out where you are, where your data touch points are, secure them, encrypt them, and prioritize security, because it is not a technical problem, it might be a business problem. There'll be catastrophic financial losses, branding issues, everything would damage the business as well. Thank you.
So we covered, there are three players are very important: investors, customers, and entrepreneurs. What is your suggestion to maintain the right relationship?
So again, the question is more around what is the, how do you maintain the right relationship between customers, investors, and founders, right? The ideal answer is that be upfront, be transparent, but in the practical world, it rarely happens. And that's why we have, Dr. Moksha Garu and all of them to have the legal documents and all of that, which run into, if not hundreds, if not thousands, at least hundreds of pages. But then again, I would say, just an extension to my namesake Shrikant Garu, who mentioned, early on, when most of us as investors take a bet, it's like, you may have this question, and it's a very cliched question: the horse or the jockey, right? So it's always the jockey, right? So if there are three things which are important in an entrepreneur, in a business, that an evaluator, investor looks at least early on, is number one, founder, number two, founder, number three, founder, right? Everybody thinks that I have a brilliant idea, as again he mentioned. And again, don't get me wrong, but ideas are just toilet papers if you can't execute on them. Right, so everybody who comes up saying that, and most of us on this side, and including you, who say that please sign this non-disclosure agreement. If I were to do that in a day, probably I'll only sign 100 non-disclosure agreements in the first half of my day. So we typically, most investors, since we talk to a lot of companies and founders, we politely decline signing NDAs unless it's come to a stage where it is meaningful in terms of conversation, because Everybody thinks I'm working on something very great and novel, which all due respect, probably when you step out, you will find 10 more people. You step outside Hyderabad, you'll find 100. Outside of India, maybe 1,000 of them. So it's really about execution. So it's important to have a great complementary team, again, as one of the co-panelists mentioned. Complementary, supplementary skill sets. Very important is the founders have to be go-getters. I always say that the founder has to be the best salesperson of the entire team, right? You may be a CTO, you may be a marketing guy, you could be a finance guy, starting a business. But when you start your own business, the first thing you need to be is an extremely articulate salesperson. Even to an investor or to a banker or to your first hire, or even to your wife, father, first you need to convince why you're throwing away something, maybe a great salary job, and then you have this idea, and then why you want to start it, and they need to be patient with you. It starts from the family, then you probably hiring your co-founder, not hiring or joining hands for a co-founder, or pitching to your customer, to your point. You need to be an excellent sales articulate. You need to be able to articulate your thought process very clearly. Without that, most founders these days, we see if they raise a Series A, they become like Chairman Emeritus, like Narayan Murthy or somebody. They are not anymore hands-on. It's very important that the founder knows at least his basic numbers. If you ask them what's your monthly run rate, if he says that I'll ask my accountant or my CA or my CFO, then that's really sad, right? Probably once you get to a certain stage, then you can hire people and have verticals. Even then, you need to have an oversight. So founders have to be extremely hands-on. They are the best ambassadors of their business and their idea. And founders have a fiduciary responsibility to people who have invested in them, people like investors and to the board. So it's very important to, coming back to your question, is that they're very transparent and upfront. And things like he mentioned, compliance from the technology side, legal side. But all of this, I don't want to burden. If you're a very early stage founder, have your consciousness intact, moral values, integrity should be very high. As you move forward, of course, you have resources, both in terms of financial capital as well as human resources. You will start, I would say, investing in those. But to begin with, I think you need to have very high integrity, hard work, dedication, and the go-get kind of attitude, right? You really need to go and slog it out, because I'm just saying from an investor perspective, probably 99 of them would say no, and even if you get one investor, it's fine. That doesn't mean that investors are always right and you're wrong or your product is not right. It's just that probably those 99 are not the right investors for you. Start looking at like that. Any amount of rejects is all right. Keep knocking on doors. One door will eventually open. Thanks.
Thank you. Difficult question and difficult thing to answer to. So we daily face this situation. Building a proper team is always a difficult thing, because people come, people go. It's all about you building a core team, which is essential here. You have to find like-minded people who are with you and who like your passion, and they think that the company is theirs, and they take initiative and build a product for you. It's always, we have to use Sama, Dana, Dandopadhyaya everywhere. So do whatever that is essential to get that resource. Maintain the core team, as Sir said, outsource the non-operating things to others, and keep developing the core team which will follow your passion, and make sure that you build the product in priority. This will help you to retain them. And in the general statistics, I say you have to work about 200% to get 100% requirement from your resource. Thank you.
So, while the entrepreneur journey, we come across many experiences. So, I'd like to ask Shabarinath Kandala, can you share us one of your live example or live experience where the cyber security fails and the disaster happened?
Sure. I could probably go on for the entire day to discuss on this topic, but I'll highlight two examples which everybody knows. As a startup, one of the bigger company that everybody uses on the phone, Uber, when they started back their operations in India, their systems were a little weak, right? They did not focus more on security because they were trying to enter into the market and bring in more customers. They had a huge data leakage incident which happened. and they kind of exposed all the user phone numbers and PII data of their customers, and it was found in the dark web. That was one of the incident, and one live example which I worked 3 weeks back in Bangalore. I'll not be able to tell the name of the client, but it's a fintech company where they had a very successful product they built, and then their business was growing. They had an incident where their customer data, along with their lot of documentation, legal documentation, was out through a very weak API which they had. And then we had, as a forensic retainer and incident response team, I was part of the investigation. I went there, and then we figured out that we looked at we call it as the first point of entry. How did the hacker enter into the gate? And is this a house? Which door he came in? So within an organization infrastructure point of view, we looked at, and we found one employee opened an email, a phishing email, and through that he went into the entire system and opened all the doors for himself by getting the passwords and everything. He was there in the system for more than 60 days. Nobody could find out within the organization, right, that somebody outside person is already inside their network. And one fine day he went and he slowly got data uploaded into his center, and then he uploaded the data into dark web eventually. What happened here is basically loss of trust customers. They had operations in EU, GDPR implications, right? So the legalities, what could have happened. Now, after that, we kind of gave them a roadmap as to what they need to do next, because they have to run the business. They had more customers, revenue coming in. They said, we are not going to stop, do whatever you want to do and set it up for us. Then we had to go and assess, get all this best of the best security for them, check their APIs, fix them, and then we move forward. So this is one of the examples which I wanted to quote. One important thing I think what Srikanth was mentioning, basically whenever PE, these days PEs are investing more in, whenever they go for they're planning to invest some money in a startup, right? So they do due diligence not only from cyber security but also from the integrity point of view. So there was one customer where we had their customer growth was expanding very rapidly. And we wanted to see, is this data right or not? Can you please tell us? Then we did some analytics and figured out all the user accounts for that particular company were created from Bangladesh. So they hired a company in Bangladesh to create these fake accounts and then show more number of users into the system, right? Basically to increase their valuation. One of the examples which we did from a forensic angle, not from a cyber security, but we have that practice also, some partner for that as well. I want to quote that example as well. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you. Face the challenges from the compliance point of view and IP rights. So what kind of suggestions that you will offer them from a compliance point of view and IP rights, intellectual property rights?
It's two questions bundled in one question.
Because of lack of time,
I'll address both.
combined these two.
I'll address both. See, when it comes to compliance are known structured evaluation. It could be from the point of view of the regulator, or it could be from the point of view of the business in which you are. There are certain standard compliances like what MCA has to do, what PF and ESI has to do. These are standard compliances. Apart from that, there are sector-specific compliances. The business in which you are, if you are in food industry, there are FSSAI compliances which you are supposed to do. Keep a track of it separately. If you are giving to a consultant, make sure that your consultant is vigilant. Because sometimes we rely upon consultants and they have a party somewhere and that party backfires on you. So that's a most interesting thing which you have to always keep a track on. Second, when it comes to the point of view of IPRs, 90%, in fact 99% of the entrepreneurs whom I see today, they feel very happy when they apply for a trademark. They overwhelm their joy when the trademark is registered. But your journey of intellectual property has started when your trademark has registered, it did not end. So you have to understand that the trademark, the patent, the copyrights of whatever you have are registered, and once they're registered, you have to have a constant vigilance on this. This is what we call as IP vigilance. If you have a trademark and you don't know what value the trademark has, then I think you're not doing business. You're actually running something in illusion. Your business parallelly creates an intellectual property. If you know it and you're scaling up, this intellectual property you can use in your valuation and get a better price, and you can get a better investor. Sometimes, unknowingly, by your acts, could be a data breach, could be a bad customer review. If you see in Dubai, you have written a genuine bad review on a portal of a customer, you would be taxed. It's not the company. People will come after you. In India, civil scenario is different. That can damage your entire intellectual property, which is built over years. So first, know track of your intellectual property vigilance. It's not just trademark. You should understand certain processes which you have made are worth being patented. Once you know this and get it patented, you have value creation in your business.
Thank you, sir. The next question go to Srikanth Kotiri Garu. So while the entrepreneur journey, people will have a lot of ups and downs, and while they need some kind of a support and all, so what kind of a motivation that you provide building resilience while the entrepreneur journey?
See, I think definitely entrepreneur journey is not a easy journey. So I'll give you an example for myself. I was doing fairly well. I was working in New York. I probably had 8 promotions in 4 years. I started my career in Standard & Poor's, one of the largest financial companies in the world. And you know you are capable of something, but when you decide to set up something, there is always a change element that requires you to think whether you are ready for this change, or can you do this change? Can you afford this change? You are in extremely comfort zone, and then you're going to completely shake up the stage that you are sitting on, and it's not an easy journey. To make that call from the comfort zone, it requires a lot of guts. Then once you think you are ready for it, you got to be able to convince your family and friends, like Srikanth Garu was saying. You got to be able to convince them why you think you can do it, right? So when you go through all this, get to a stage, I think it comes to a phase where you're determined in getting things done. Because once you are to that stage, you have to be motivated no matter what stage you are in. You are solely focused and a self-motivating person. So you're not relying on anybody to come and tap your shoulders and say, you're doing a good job. It is you who need to be building the team, the core values, why you're setting up the company, and what you're driving towards. So you have to be a passionate person. You have to believe in what you're trying to do. And there is no 5-day work week. You are working every day. Every moment you're thinking through, what can you do? And whatever you're doing, if it's not giving you the results, that means you got to change the way you're doing things, right? So it's a full-time job, and for a greater future that you can actually see, because there is no immediate success for anybody. It's a lot of hard work. You have to have that passion, dedication, discipline. The other key thing the co-founders I actually see is they have to be foresighted. So in the angles of like compliance, scaling the business, IP, all of these requires for you to be foresighted. Before something comes knocking your door, you have to set the standards, what you plan to do. So if it's you're in the compliance, whether it's ISO compliance or a SOC compliance, SOC 2 or PCI, you might be, there are reasons for having compliance in every industry. You have to understand the essence, why it is required, and how you're going to, take it up. The team may not be ready for it because there are n number of things that you will be dealing with in every day. But you have to make sure that you give priority and you start the game ahead. Same thing with IP. Why would PE invest in you? It's not they are just investing in you. They are investing the asset. The asset are not just the people, but the asset is also the idea. So you have to ensure that you are protecting your IP as well. So I think being foresighted is also very, very important because nobody will be thinking for you. You have to be foresighted. So I would say you have to drive who you are, whom you want to be an entrepreneur because people are investing in you and then the idea.
For all the new entrepreneurs, stay put, work hard, and make sure that you have zero ego, collaborate with as many as people you can, and get the business done. Thank you.
I know that.
I would say it's okay to fail, not okay not to try. So you should definitely try, and then it's okay, whatever is the outcome.
Create this by saying, just try and then don't worry about cybersecurity, we can deal with it.
As a legal professional, I always say, two places you should never try to go, but unfortunately you go. One is the court, second is a hospital. But having said that, you should always focus on a simple point. Don't trust yourself in something which you cannot do. You have advocates to handle your legal issue. Try resort to them, they are experts.
I think I might have overstated that it's a tough journey, but it's actually an amazing journey. And I think we should promote and also encourage our next generation to be able to become their own entrepreneurs, which I think is a key factor for any growth. It's one thing for us to hire people for a company that we work for, but it's another thing that we actually build and provide employment to our own company. So the value that you would actually think should be much higher than just having an idea. So set yourself higher standards and aim high and be diligent.
Thing goes, if goes to the counter, simply he'll open the online price. So the online price is affected to the trade. And not only me, it is affecting to the entire retail trade. How to face it, sir? Because government is encouraging digital sale, Amazon, Flipkart. So how to face it? Can you suggest us? There we are losing the margins. Thank you, sir.
A chunk of the business. Online is very small, right? And going forward, and in the last couple of years, I think many brands are seeing, and you must also be seeing this, that most businesses, as time goes, they will become more omni-channel, right? Online to offline, offline to online. But again, when you're starting, let's say, D2C kind of companies, if you guys, a lot of you may be selling, certain products, consumer products, it's probably easy to begin with, given we are in the Amazon era and all of that, to probably have an online store. But subsequently, you may want to have an experience store if you are able to afford the high street rentals, things like that. That's like a natural progression. So, there is competition, I wouldn't deny, but then, there is offline model depending on your target segment and your product category. Online is great when you want to start and launch and get a feedback from the, because you can actually keep, this month, next month, and you can have multiple things. Offline is something where your loyalty of the customer comes. Today what happens, phone real estate is actually become a little cheap, that if you give me a 1 rupee less or a delivery free, I'll probably uninstall one app and install another app, right? So it's really about building your customer relationship, going back to the same, knowing what your customer wants and, build that. Some of them are heavily funded, so maybe you will find it little difficult. I can understand. I don't want to rubbish off what you are asking, but at the same time, the truth is that most of them will be omni-channel, depending on your product and service though. Funds who are focusing only on sustainability, climate tech funds, and there are other sector agnostic funds like us who also have a climate lens that we apply when we are evaluating and investing. But then to answer your question, there are climate focused funds as such as well, India and outside India as well.
There is no end when anybody can get into cybersecurity. So there is no like only BTech, computer science can do a cybersecurity. That's a myth. Okay. Right? If you have enough knowledge on how a computer works, how a networking works, the system works, right? And how the data package happens, then I think it's just about spending some time understanding various operating systems, understanding various applications which are already built by many companies, and then you can get into any of the cybersecurity area, because cybersecurity itself is vast. Depends, so is it mobile security, are you going to endpoint security, are you going on network security? There's so many areas that you can explore. My only suggestion is, people think that it's not my ball. Like, I can't get into cybersecurity. That's a myth. You just spend a couple of weeks, you can get a job.
Marginalized, part of the society. It could be women empowerment. It could be for a social cause, impact. So there are various investors who look for various themes, and all of that is a possibility. Very important again, but we go back to what all the jury mentioned is about having a great, you're solving a real problem with a real solution. Right?
To address your question, very simple. Any new technology coming into the market or coming into the industry, which is having both the advantage and as well as the disadvantage. Okay, but how you adopt the technology to your business is very, very important, and how you want to utilize the technology to scaling up your business or expanding your business is very important. The other side, the disadvantage is always there whenever any new technology coming into the market or coming into the business. But how you take it up to your advantages, to scaling up your business is very important. If anyone even want to address.
What's your age? What's your name?
I'm just 15 years and I'm studying in 10th class.
Okay. So I won't give you a very technical answer, so I'm just trying to understand that. But AI applications are very important. AI is a reality. There will be different kind of jobs in the next half a decade itself, not far away. So AI is reality, so be prepared for it. But what you need to know is you don't necessarily need to develop, and I don't want to throw jargons at you, LLMs and all, but I'm just saying applications of AI is what most people need to know. Let's say a lawyer or a doctor, it's not, nobody expects them to learn coding, but even in their field, they're expected to understand the applications and therefore use AI, which increases their productivity in their offering and services. That's about it.
Bring in shareholders from the company. So that's where I look at, and it's the regular KYC that is required. It's more than the documentation, what I see at the beginning, to standardize your processes, like your vendor interactions, your customer interactions and all. First document which should be with you is something called line of interest of your business. You should know what is your business, whom you are catering to, who are your target customers, who are your stakeholders and your vendors. You should have a detailed drafted agreement for all these people, followed by your line of interest in the business. These are the documents which primarily you require, apart from the statute requirements.
Any startup, when they initiate the process of registration and everything, they'll have three constraints in the terms of resources: funds, human resource, and clients. So funds we'll talk later. Resources, human resources, and business development.
When you are evaluating a startup. So again, contrary or ironic to what most people may think, the best way to probably run a business need not necessarily be raising funding from outside. probably the best way could be also bootstrapping and raising, building your own company, keeping your equity. You only go out and raise other forms of capital, be it debt or mezzanine or even equity, if you're ready to dilute stake in your company. And at that point in time, investors are of again different classes. They will be somebody who are very early stage investors who may just invest just in your idea. And there may be some investors who want to see some kind of traction, right? Like Moksha Garu said, maybe at least some kind of compliance, some company has been registered. Maybe you have some initial customers, some initial traction. So it depends really on what stage your company is and what is that particular investor comfortable getting in at which stage, right? So, and again, financial prudence is really important. You have to be frugal as an entrepreneur. But again, if you're just trying to look for an investor, then it's equally important that you do your diligence and homework on the investor that you are trying to reach out to, because investors do the same on the company and the founders that they are willing to evaluate for investment, right?